Welcome back to another episode of Trading Card History, where we dive deep into picture collectibles' rich journey from the 1800s to today. From baseball to Beatles, from football to fashion, and from pre-war to Pokemon, we will be covering every flavor of cards, the stories around them, and the people that made them happen. Let's resume. Part 6. The Reign of Topps, 1950 to 1960. The end of World War II ushered in the baby boomer generation and what has become the glory days of professional baseball. The flashpoint for this great era is known as the shot heard around the world. The New York Giants were far behind in the championship race in 1951, but built an impossible comeback at the end of the season, winning 37 of 44 games. This brought them to the championship game as an immense underdog that captivated the country. On October 3rd, 1951, the New York Giants were down 4-2 coming into the ninth inning in Game 3 for the National League pennant. Back then, the series only went to 3 games, so this is effectively the equivalent of Game 7. There were 2 men on base when Bobby Thomson came up to bat. 2 outs, down 2 runs, 2 men on base, 9th inning, Game 3 of the NL Championship. The stakes could not have been higher. The entire country held their breath as pitcher Ralph Branca threw an outside fastball to Bobby Thomson. The crack of the bat was immediately followed by erupting cheers as the ball cleared the fence, leading to a walk-off victory for a team that shouldn't have even been there. The Washington Post writes, Hollywood's most imaginative screenwriters on an opium jag could not have imagined a more improbable wind-up of the season. A soldier in the Korean War wrote to Thomson, I was in the bunker in the front lines with my buddy listening to the radio. It was contrary to orders, but he was a Giants fanatic. He never made it home, and I promised him if I ever got back, I'd write and tell you about the happiest moment of his life. It's taken me this long to put my feelings into words. On behalf of my buddy, thanks, Bobby. This game goes by many names. A shot heard around the world, the miracle of Coogan's Bluff, but I like to call it the game that made America fall back in love with baseball. At this same time, Bowman, the company that produced the Horrors of War cards from a decade prior, rolled out their first full color of baseball cards. The 1950 Bowman set was an eye-catching set with great portraits and action poses, but did not get much attention because Bowman was unable to get contracts with many of the stars, such as Stan Musial and Joe DiMaggio. Bowman rectified this in 1951 by paying players significantly more for their likeness, ensuring that all stars would be present in the set. This deal set a new standard in athlete contracts in the trading card space, and athletes began to know their worth. This set features 30 Hall of Famers and loads of rookies, with the most notable 3 being Whitey Ford, Willie Mays, and Mickey Mantle. The Mick would become the baseball king, but in 1951 he was just another player struggling to make a roster spot. The 51 Bowman features Mantle wearing the number 6, which he only wore for about a month before he was sent from the Yankees down to a AAA team due to a slump. When he was called back up later that year, he switched to number 7, which he kept until retirement. In the late 40s through 1951, Bowman was the baseball card king and ran unopposed. This changed in 1952 when a young company named Topps threw their hat in the ring. A New York-based company, Topps saw the combination of baseball resurging and the success of the Bowman cards and the Yankees dynasty creating stars in their backyard and realized they had to jump in fast. 2 employees, Cy Berger and Woody Gelman, were tasked with creating the card set. Berger was the rigid businessman and Gelman was the creative mind. The Topps brothers in charge knew they needed to jump in the baseball season before Bowman gained more market share, and they knew these two men were the best combination for the job. The two spent long hours working together on design ideas that Gelman would sketch up, and Berger would work on player contracts, ensuring that no star was left out of the set. The design the two came up with featured novel elements that we now see as a hobby staple, such as larger card sizes of 2 5/8 inches by 3 3/4 inches, which is now the standard card size for the hobby. It also featured aesthetic elements such as a facsimile signature of the player on the front, the team logo, and the most important addition, player statistics on the back. All of these are seemingly obvious in retrospect, but they were hardly ever featured on cards at the time. Many kids loved flipping to the sports section of the newspaper every day and looking at the player averages. So this addition simplified the most important stats included in the past year. Every sport fan knows how much fun it is to stand around with friends and argue about stats, Hall of Fame, GOAT debates, etc. And having the numbers on the back of the card made that much easier. As Dave Jamieson said, Berger and Clemen had created the prototype for the modern baseball card. And with this prototype, Topps would dominate the field of trading cards for the next 40 years. While these details were being polished by Gelman and Berger was working hard on securing contracts with players, they saw the failure of the 1950 Bowman due to the lack of stars and realizing signing a small contract with a key player would pay itself back many times over. Topps created a company called Players Enterprises, which was the first marketing firm for athletes. It gathered contracts from the majority of players, giving them royalties for using their picture and likeness on the cards. The idea of giving players bargaining power over their likeness, letting a third party manage confusing contracts, and protect the player against being taken advantage of, was something that quickly took hold in all sports and became an industry norm. Once again, trading cards play an instrumental role in creating something much bigger than themselves. When 1952 Topps finally hit store shelves, it was a huge hit. Its bigger size and rich colors captivated children nationwide. They could barely keep up with the demand for this 310 card set, so they released an expansion set of 97 cards soon after. In that expansion set features the most famous post-war trading card, the Mickey Mantle number 311. This card was technically a second-year card and not a rookie, but due to the importance of 52 Topps to collectors, the 52 Topps would outshine the 51 Bowman and become an honorary rookie card for the hobby. This set created a fierce competition between Topps and Bowman for two reasons. The first is that 52 Topps was so beautiful and refined that Bowman would adapt to copying its size, stats on the back, and photography of the players. This competition in the 1953 year brought some of the most beautiful cards the hobby had seen, with Bowman deciding to go with crisp color photographs for their 53 set, while Topps decided to go with hand-painted headshots. The second aspect of this competition is Topps set the stage for contracts with baseball players, and now the two companies competed for who could get the most stars to sign with their company. In the past, contracts were non-exclusive and more of a permission to use their likeness, but after the lucrative contracts that Topps started, players were signing much more expensive exclusive deals because Topps and Bowman did not want to share. If Ted Williams signed with Topps, Red Sox fans were going to buy Topps. If Mickey Mantle signed with Bowman, Yankees fans were going to buy Bowman. This year featured fragmented card sets due to these issues, which was a net loss for collectors. Even if they didn't have all the stars, kids seemed to overwhelmingly prefer Topps over Bowman. Bowman and Topps would ruthlessly compete for the next 3 years, but by 1956, Topps had gained so much of the market that Bowman was forced to cut their losses and sold all of their rights to Topps. This merger in 1956 gave Topps the exclusive rights to produce baseball cards with candy. This was the primary way kids were used to getting cards, so the smaller companies trying to compete in the card space, like Fleer, Donruss, and Leaf, had to look for alternative ways to get their cards on the market. Donruss, for example, sold their cards with booklets explaining the rules of the game. Due to the deals Topps was cutting with players and their exclusive rights over baseball cards sold with candy, other candy manufacturers went to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, claiming Topps as a monopoly in 1962. This movement was led by Fleer, who invented the modern-day bubblegum, and put baseball players in packs 40 years prior, but was now barred from profiting off of their own creation. Topps was going to extreme lengths to ensure that they had exclusive rights to baseball players. Topps had full-time scouts on their payroll to find and sign players before anyone even knew who they were. They went after kids in farm leagues, college players, and in some cases even high schoolers, signing them to exclusive and very long-term contracts for dirt cheap on the off chance that they became noteworthy down the line. Players with no concept of the value of their likeness were signing their life away to Topps for as little as $5 in some cases. These dirt cheap contracts were pushed on these young players by coaches who were being paid under the table by Topps to encourage them and assure them that it was a normal practice. Topps denied all of these claims, but one of its own scouts, a man named Cy Berger, testified against Topps and exposed their shady practices. If a player made it to the major leagues and somehow did not already have a contract with Topps, they were offered $125 per year to have their likeness on cards, but were encouraged to take the payment through goods rather than money, such as couches and microwaves. In 1960, Topps signed 414 of the 421 active MLB players. It was a complete robbery, and the FTC filing by Fleer and other companies held a lot of merit. One of the biggest problems with fighting Topps was that almost all the players backed their own terrible contracts. The only player who spoke out was Ted Williams. He declined signing with Topps and instead put his likeness out to the highest bidder. Fleer was willing to pay and gave Williams $12,500 for a one-year deal, 100 times the going rate at Topps. Since Fleer only had one player, they released a whole Ted Williams set, which flopped because kids wanted a variety of players. But it did start letting athletes know that they were worth more than what they were getting. Players slowly started asking for more and more money, but they would still sign with Topps. As the monopoly grew, there were noticeable drops in quality as Topps began trying less and less. They knew that their product would be bought regardless.